Call this regular meeting of the Village of Villa Park Planning and Zoning Commission to order. We'll start with a roll call. Dominic Romano.
Here.
Jack Lanenga.
Here.
Morgan Rickel. Linda Bello. Jason Jarrett.
Here.
Vince Gatto.
Here.
Mike Orlowski.
Here.
Ken Jackson. Okay, we still have a quorum. All right. Next agenda item is approval of minutes for September 14th, 2017. Is there a motion?
I'd make a motion to approve the minutes of September 14th, 2017.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on that motion? Hearing none, vote by roll call. Commissioner Romano.
Yes.
Commissioner Lanenga.
Yes.
Jarrett.
Yes.
Gatto.
Yes.
Orlowski.
Yes.
Jackson. Sorry. Okay. With that, the motion passes. Petition PZ 170018, special use for expansion of the public library at 305 South Ardmore Avenue, is our first petition for this evening. Williams Architects is the petitioner. I ask that anyone that's going to speak tonight on behalf of the petitioner, please stand up now. And we're going to have you sworn in. And then you'll come up to the podium and state your name and address for the record as you begin your presentation. So, gentlemen's over here. Come over and then we'll swear you in.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that testimony you're about to give this cause now and here will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
All right. Name and address, please.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Andy Dogan from Williams Architects, 500 Testa and the architect of the Villa Park Public Library. We're pleased to be presenting our application for special use and some information about the project this evening. And we've put together a presentation with much of the information that you received in that application packet. Next slide, please. Not sure where these are being moved from.
Over there.
Over there. To very quickly recap the project, what we have come before this body tonight to discuss is the expansion and renovation of the library that was approved by residents of Villa Park via referendum in April of this year. It's an expansion of the library to provide much needed space for programs, services, and activities of the library, in addition to a gut remodeling of the entire existing building to address its aging and, in many cases, original infrastructure. The project consists of a 9,200 square foot addition to the about 22,000 square foot existing building. It also entails an entirely new parking lot, entrance, and drop-off to the north of the existing library. We're proposing 55 parking spaces, an increase of about 17 from what the library currently provides in its parking lots. Other components of the project include a drive-up book drop in the parking lot area, an outdoor reading and program area to the west of the existing building, and the project is certainly going to be phased so that the library is open and available to residents throughout the construction process. So to very briefly orient everybody as to the current conditions, we have the existing library building shown on the screen, the parking lot to the south, and then to the north there's the existing church parking lot for the church and school next door, and then to the north of that a vacant lot and in a home owned by the library. The library has entered into an agreement with the diocese to effectively swap their parking lot for the church's parking lot, resulting in the following configuration. We would expand the building to the north with that aforementioned addition, have a parking lot, stormwater area to the north on those properties, and then turn the existing library parking lot to the south over to the church, becoming their parking lot. From an engineering standpoint, we have submitted preliminary civil engineering plans prepared by Erickson Engineering, our civil engineer of record, showing the configuration of the new parking lot, entrance drives, book drop, and the stormwater management area. We met with village staff approximately 2 months ago to ensure that we had an understanding of the municipal and county requirements for stormwater, and to the best of our knowledge, those are incorporated into the plans that you all received and reviewed. From a landscaping standpoint, we've provided landscaping in accordance with the zoning ordinance's requirement for parking lot landscaping. Along the north side of the property where there is an existing home, we're proposing a 6-foot high solid wood look fence in accordance with the requirements of the zoning ordinance. A landscaped entrance, and then plantings around the building to provide foundation level plantings, again in accordance with the village's zoning ordinance requirements. There will also be some work as part of the land swap at the south of the building. We have, this was developed slightly after our submittal, so we wanted to add this sketch. Essentially the sidewalk as it currently exists at the library's entrance comes over the existing property line between the library and what will become the church property for a few feet. So we're proposing to remove that sidewalk as it currently exists and replace it with a narrower sidewalk and then a planting area along that south property line. So the church will end up having the potential to add to their parking lot as part of this. But we are addressing the property lines and the landscaping and the encroachment onto what will become the church's property as part of the project. A little bit more detail about the landscaping plan. We've developed a landscaping plan that has a variety of plant materials that are consistent with the village's zoning ordinance requirements and landscape requirements. If we just go through the next few slides, you can see a plant list that was provided as part of the landscaping plan, and then just a few more examples of the types of shade trees that are being provided throughout the site. Some of the mid-sized ornamental trees and grasses that will be in the parking lot and a little bit closer to the building. Some deciduous shrubs, again, to provide some color and to provide some landscaping interest. And that's about it for the landscaping. And we wanted to also show a few of the proposed architectural renderings. Again, we've been able to move the process a little further beyond what was in the packet, so we're showing a development of those renderings. If you've been by the site in the last couple months, you've noticed that we have a separately permitted project to replace the fascia panels at the top of the library. They were originally a precast concrete product, and they've been replaced with a metal product. So that vocabulary and that material will be repeated along the north side of the building where we're developing the addition. So the addition is meant to harmonize with the existing building, but to provide an exciting new entrance to the library that really is unique to the community and to Villa Park. We can just go quickly through the next few renderings. We have a view from the north, let's see, that's the northeast, looking back towards the building. Towards the bottom of the photo, you saw the fence and the landscaped stormwater area. Next, please. Another aerial view closer to the entrance, showing the entrance plaza, the flagpole, the entrance to the building, and then to the left, you can see the book drop-off area and some of the other landscape treatments. A view from Ardmore Avenue looking back towards the existing building and the new landscaping that will be part of the project, as well as that sidewalk we mentioned immediately to the right. An aerial view of that same area. We're taking the space outside of those existing windows and creating a new feature, an outdoor program and reading area off of what will become the children's department. So that will be a fenced-in area with an egress gate and will become paved to allow for all sorts of different programs and activities. Again, moving around the building to the south, showing that sidewalk kind of in shade. A close-up of the east side of the building towards the receiving area along that existing east property line. That's contemplated to be an area for a staff break area, so that's fenced and landscaped with a very small patio. And then coming back around to the entrance. We've got a couple different views there. A view of it at night with a very large moon. We can go past that. There was an animation, but I think that takes us through the project. So tonight, because it is a substantial alteration to the existing building, we sought to engage Mr. Grill and his staff early to make sure we were following the process as it should be. We applied for the special use, and we're here tonight to answer any questions that the board may have.
Yes, staff did meet with Williams Architects on a number of occasions to go over the process and the requirements. I was very pleased with the submittal that they made on this particular project. They've done a fantastic job with the site plan, with the landscaping, with the elevations. I think it'll be a very nice addition to the existing library, keeping it right in the center of town. Meets all of the required setbacks. It improves the parking above and beyond what currently exists over there, and staff believes that this is a very good submittal and will be an asset to the community. Therefore, if the commission does find in support of the applicant's request, the following motion could be entertained, and that would be to approve application PZ 170018 for a special use pursuant to section 610A15 for expansion of the public library for property located at 305 South Ardmore Avenue with PIN numbers 0610 110 014 015 033 and 034 with the following conditions: that the addition be completed in conformance with the Villa Park Public Library renovation and expansion plan prepared by Williams Architects, dated October 6, 2017, minus the proposed freestanding monument sign. The landscaping is installed in conformance with the landscaping plan prepared by Upland Design and dated October 6, 2017. The landscape plan prepared by Upland Design be signed and sealed by a registered landscape architect, and that the elevations be constructed as depicted on the expansion and remodeling plan as prepared by Williams Architects and dated October 6, 2017, with a finding of fact as included in the staff memo dated October 28, 2017, that such special use meets the standards enumerated in Article 610D of Appendix C of the Municipal Code, Village of Villa Park Basic Zoning Ordinance. And with that, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Okay, we're going to move into public participation and questions. So if there's any members of the public wishing to speak in regards to this petition, I ask you to stand up right now and be sworn in. So we have one taker. Anyone else? Just want to make this. Thank you.
Would you raise your hand, please? You do solemnly swear or affirm that testimony about to give this cause and hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
So, sir, if you could come up to the microphone here, state your name and address for the record, and then you can make your comments. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Kurt Kirchwain. The owner, KIRCHWEHM. I'm at 215 South Ardmore, which will be the home directly next to the new library. I'm one who voted for the library. I have 3 small kids. I'm glad we're having the library. I just want to know any concerns that I might need to know as that homeowner, as this progresses, kind of know the boundary lines, anything that we might need to know as that construction moves forward. It might be for a separate time, but I thought this opportunity to bring it up was the right time.
I'm going to let Director Grill maybe respond. Do you see anything for this gentleman that could be an issue?
I don't see any issue. This is not going to be any different than any other expansion, whether it is of a commercial or residential nature in the village. There are appropriate construction methods and safeguards that have to be in place prior to the construction of the building. Given Williams Architects' desire to follow our procedures, I don't see any reason why they won't continue to follow them, and it'll be a smooth transition for the new building. But certainly, if you do have any concerns, please, I will give you my card right now, and you can call me and say, hey, what about this?
Yeah, I do have some questions that may not be for this forum, so.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Anyone else wishing to comment on regards to this petition? Seeing none, we're going to move on in the agenda to questions from the commission. Questions from commission members?
Can we go back to something showing the north elevation for a minute? So it looks like it's different than what we have here, and is that the case? Or is it just,
I think
I just want to compare.
The building design is not different. The
Okay.
renderings you see in this presentation have more
That's
landscaping and people and things of that nature.
this is the west.
Okay, I guess it's probably just the way the rendering is not,
It's the way it
Showing
looks
up
in
that-
the picture.
It's-
I'm picking up the glass.
it's brick panels with glass in between still, correct? Like it is in this rendering here?
That is correct,
Okay.
yes. Below the windows in the middle of the building, that is brick with glass in between.
Okay,
Yeah, because in this rendering, it looks like
Yeah.
the glass above is solid, and
yeah, it's probably the light, but when I initially saw it, I thought there were metal panel above, and then I saw the night where it's obviously glass above. I just wanted to verify that. Okay, that's the only thing I have at the moment.
other questions from commission members?
This may be more for staff, but in terms of parking, since we're going to... Switching sides, increasing it by 17 to 55 spots now, is that right? And we're just having, is it just one entrance and exit, or maybe two, an entrance and an exit? Is there any concerns with the traffic pattern, with the stop sign right there? I mean, before, we had the one in, one out, less spots, but we also had the out that went out to Central, right? Is that, I think it's right around the corner, right?
Well, staff looked at it, there's currently one in, one out. There will continue to be one in, one out. Proximity to the stop sign, I don't believe is any closer than what currently exists right now.
No, but there was kind of that
I think it-
third exit around the back of the building there that popped out on the side street.
You mean out to Central?
Yeah, up to Central, right, exactly. And I mean, having been there with my kids, one of the busier programs, I know that's used, so
Sure.
I don't know, that was my concern, because a lot of those overflow programs also, people parked on Central as well. So we're increasing spots, but, I mean, they can still park on Central, just walk the library entrance on the
That's
other side.
correct.
But that's my concern, is just the, with that stop sign, with the bigger lot and only the two. But if you don't think there's going to be an issue, then
No,
so be it. Yeah.
staff does not believe that would be an issue.
Other questions, commission members?
No questions. I think in looking at the elevations, the materials are brick, and the metal panel, what's the finish on it like, and what is it metal panel behind the sign on this elevation as well?
That's correct. It is metal panel in that entire entrance area. It is a warm silvery color. It's actually an aluminum composite panel, so it has a bit of a thickness to it. Again, it matches the materials that have just recently been installed around the fascia of the building.
Okay. So it's all intended to be the same material, the fascia and these larger panels. Is this a different material at this?
No, that would also be the same metal panel. The
Okay.
rendering just shows it as being a little brighter because of the lighting.
Are you replacing the windows in the
Yes.
existing building as well?
Yes. All of the windows will be replaced on the existing building. They will have the silver frames to match the silver metal panels that we are proposing for the addition and for the existing building.
Okay. Okay. So I heard Director Grill mentioning the sign in his talk. Is the sign staying? Is there a new sign? What's the proposal for?
We haven't developed a specific proposal for a sign. We learned of a 10-foot setback requirement where the sign was located on the plans that were submitted. The library's preference would be to maximize parking rather than introduce that sign and reduce the amount of parking.
Okay. All right. Have you developed your parking lot lighting design yet?
It's in the process of being developed by our electrical engineers. They're aware of the photometric requirements and we'll
Great.
submit those photometrics when it's time for them.
Fantastic.
I don't think I have any other questions.
I had one as far as signage. I know you had, and it doesn't show it on this sketch, but you did have it on this sketch, a sign on the building that said the Villa Park Library. Have you considered doing the same type of sign on the west-facing wall as you do on the north-facing wall?
We may. The west-facing wall actually has signage right now
Right.
towards the southeast, the southwest corner of the building, which we would intend to keep. There's nothing wrong with it. It has a nice historic quality to the font, so the intent would be to keep what's there and supplement with the new on the north elevation.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions from commission members?
Can I have them?
Okay. I think that speaks to a good package. I think that's all of our questions. Do you have any closing comments that you'd like to add?
Not at this time. Again, we thank the staff for being very accommodating of us, meeting with us to develop the plans and making sure that our submittal was what it needed to be, and we look forward to working with staff as we move forward through the project.
Great, thank you. So is there any other members of the public, or you, sir, do you have anything else, other questions? Anyone else want to make any more statements at this point in time from the public? Hearing none, so I'm going to close the public hearing. We're going to move to discussion by commission members. Any discussion?
I like the intense landscaping plan.
Yes.
I
In the variety.
think it's the most designed landscaping plan that we've seen in a long time. And I also think the entrance and exit where it's placed will actually be easier to get in and out of because of where it's at in conjunction with the stop sign. Because it's on the north side of the stop sign, not the south side. So I
Right.
think it'll be easier to get in and out.
Yeah, I have to comment on that too. I really like also how they've incorporated sort of outdoor learning and public plaza spaces into the landscape design. I think that's going to be a really attractive addition to the library because right now it doesn't have that feature at all.
No, I like the way they're carrying the brick around to the front, into the new front, the north side. While adding slightly modern elements that aren't too modern.
Yeah, I think
I like it.
I do too. I think the idea of the land swap was really good. Gave the expansion room, and really it's where there was a parking lot already that was kind of a large expanse of asphalt. So I think it's actually going to beautify that area with more green and landscaping, as was pointed out. Should give the library all the space they need inside. So I think it's a a good proposal, and in terms of a special use, I agree with the findings of fact that we have in our packet. Whenever we look at a special use, we have to, talk about surrounding land uses. Is this compatible? It obviously has been for a number of years. It's consistent with our comprehensive plan. It's not going to cause any injury to any other properties. They've got all the landscaping fences proposed that we require, and the parking is going to be adequately sized. So I think it meets with all of the findings of fact that we've been looking for. So short of any other discussion by commission members, we could have a motion.
Does landscaping maintenance fall to, not the grass, but the flowers and whatnot, fall to library staff to maintain?
Well, the library, I'm sure, will probably have a contract. Director Grill's nodding his head in the affirmative that they'll have a contract to do those things.
Ultimately, it will be up to the library to maintain that landscaping, whether they hire a third party or if they do it themselves, that's up to them. But yeah, and staff will ensure, just like any other property, that if the landscaping starts to fall, then they'll get notices.
Okay. Motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve application PZ 170018 for the following. 1, special use pursuant to section 6.10.A.15 for expansion of the public library for a property located at 305 South Ardmore Avenue. Pen numbers 0610110014, 015, 033 and 034, with the following conditions: that the addition be completed in conformance with the Villa Park Public Library renovation and expansion plan prepared by Williams Architects dated October 6, 2017, minus the proposed freestanding monument sign. 2, that landscaping is installed in conformance with the landscape plan prepared by Upland Design and dated October 6, 2017. 3, that the landscape plan prepared by Upland Design be signed and sealed by a registered landscape architect. 4, that the elevations be constructed as depicted on the expansion and remodeling plan as prepared by Williams Architects and dated October 6, 2017, with a finding of fact that such special use meets the standards enumerated in Article 6.10.d of Appendix C and as enumerated in the memorandum dated October 28, 2017. Let me rephrase that. With a finding of fact that special use meets the standards enumerated in Article 6.10.d of Appendix C, the Municipal Code, Village of Villa Park Basic Zoning Ordinance, as enumerated in the staff memorandum dated October 28, 2017.
I'll second that.
Okay, second. Any questions or comments on that motion? Okay, hearing none. By roll call, Commissioner Romano,
Yes.
Commissioner Lanega,
Yes.
Commissioner Jarrett,
Yes.
Gatto,
Yes.
Orlowski,
Yes.
and I too vote yes. With this, our recommendation passes to the village board. They can either accept, reject, or modify our recommendation. Thank you. Okay. That was our hearing for this evening. We have a continued discussion on tiny homes that we're going to pick up here. It's not a hearing, it's a discussion. So it's not going to follow necessarily the same sets of procedures that we just went through because it is a discussion, not a formal hearing. So Director Grill, would you like to come up and get us started, please?
As part of this discussion, one of our commissioners, Commissioner Bello, could not make it. I did forward some comments she had, and I believe that they were included in your packet. Additionally, we had a letter submitted after the initial discussion on tiny homes, and I just wanted to hand that out. As stated before, currently our zoning ordinance does not allow for tiny homes. And if we were to allow it, we would need to develop an amendment to our ordinance and develop some guidelines. That's why staff included a number of other locations that have addressed this particular issue. And they are from communities across the country, from Washington to Maine to Texas, Minnesota, Nebraska, all in there. And if you read through them, you can kind of see where they're all over the place in terms of the types of issues that they felt were important in their communities. But they all mention the fact that specifically as it relates to building codes and zoning codes, it's a very difficult discussion or task to try to adequately address. But it's going to be something that if this commission is interested in pursuing, that staff and this commission would have to address in developing those standards. But I think the biggest question this evening is, what is our appetite for addressing tiny homes? Is it something that Villa Park needs? Is it something that the community as a whole accepts or wants to pursue? And I believe that's where we're at this evening. I think that if it is something that we want to pursue, we're probably hitting it at a very good time in terms of the update to the zoning ordinance. But it has to be something that majority of this commission and ultimately the village board would want to do. So with that, I will open it up for questions from the commission.
Just give a few words on when this discussion was first started.
This discussion came about 3 months ago. I had a couple approach me. They currently live in Villa Park. They currently rent, but they would like to own a home in Villa Park, but they would like to own a home that is small and affordable. And that's where the desire for tiny homes came up. Tiny homes certainly are the darlings of social media and HGTV right now. Lots and lots of programs on tiny homes. And they do offer the ability to have a small carbon footprint, be more affordable than your average single-family suburban home. And like I told the couple, is currently our ordinance does not allow for tiny homes. And so I suggested that they approach this commission. And the initial discussion was, well, we'd like to have a little bit more information on it. And staff went out, found a number of places that have addressed this issue and provided it to the commission for them to digest and reach some sort of point of discussion on.
Okay. So, thank you. Since this is a discussion, we'll have questions, I'm sure, as commission members. Do we want to hear? I think a lot of people are here tonight to talk about this. So, do we want to hear from the public? Maybe some of their thoughts.
Yeah. No, I don't know if there's. I know there are some parties here more interested in terms of the actual project. If they want to maybe say a few words first, and then if there's other people that want to respond to that, or.
Yeah.
Was there anybody against tiny homes here?
Could we get a quick just refresher from Mr. Grill on, as ordinances stand right now, if I'm remembering correctly, you couldn't, even on a foundation, build a tiny home, and the square footage has to be certain, but it's a garage hang up. We have to have a garage currently, right? Is that how it stands with a home?
Correct.
And the mobile aspect of it too, you couldn't wheel it in, it would have to be foundation,
Correct.
as we stand right now.
Correct. But then you have issues particularly related to building codes.
Yes.
Because we have adopted building codes in this community, and most tiny homes don't meet necessarily the building code, but they do meet, RV requirements because they are on wheels, and that's what a lot of communities allow for. Other communities, and if you read the material that was in your packet, do not allow tiny homes on wheels because as an RV, they don't allow full-time living in an RV in their communities. So there's those issues that would have to be addressed and overcome before we could really allow tiny homes.
So actually, even a stick-built tiny home wouldn't be legal right now because of the garage restrictions? Or what?
Well, theoretically, if you could meet the garage restriction,
And be on a zoning lot of record.
be on a zoning lot of
Minimum
record.
zoning lot of record.
The problem is garages cannot be any more than, well, you could theoretically have a garage that is larger than the home,
Sure.
provided the garage was no larger than, I think, 530 square feet. But then you defeat the whole purpose of a tiny home, which is try to have a smaller carbon footprint.
So the summary is that none of our zoning designations and bulk regulations would allow tiny homes in them currently.
I would say yes, that is correct.
Correct.
And then on top of that, you have building code issues in terms of,
Correct.
in some cases, minimum ceiling height, minimum room area,
Yeah.
things like that that are
Correct.
established, that not necessarily all tiny homes would have that issue, but many of
Most
the
would.
prefab
Sure.
ones would.
Would have issues. Yeah, because I think from what I'm reading in the packet, most of them are built towards the RV code,
Correct.
which is what you stated. So I get, is there someone in the audience though that was I think we have a plan in our packet.
Yes.
Is that from?
That is from the owner of a tiny home company called Titan Tiny Homes
Okay.
in South Elgin, and he is here this evening.
Okay. So maybe we'll have that if he wants to come up and kind of talk and start the discussion that way. Kind of understand a little bit more as a kind of the facts behind or what's the.
Yeah. So
So could you and this isn't being recorded. You can see the court reporter has left because it's no longer a hearing. It's just a discussion. But it'd still be good if you could state your name and address and everything for the record for us. Thank you.
my name's Bob Clarizio. I started Titan Tiny Homes 2.5 years ago in South Elgin. Everything that you've heard tonight from staff is true, and as far as RV code and things like that. I'd like to elaborate as to why and help clarify, I think, where we're all looking to go. One thing for sure is many times tiny houses get confused as a motivation for frugality. And although that is an element that's embodied with this is also a philosophy of how people want to live in the sense of a more minimalistic lifestyle, less clutter, a more condensed space. And their home is considered more of a tool towards their life so that they have more money to go on trips or an easier way to retire or whatever you might want to do there. So there's that. Now, the main demographics of the tiny house movement, if you will, or at least the high majority of those comprised on our 60-person waiting list, which is the entire reason that I'm here tonight, is because we do have 60 people that are well-qualified buyers to live this lifestyle and move into your community, if that was the case to go. Are primarily baby boomers and millennials. They both have very different motivators for why they want to live a tiny, outside of the minimalist lifestyle. For baby boomers, primarily it's they want to stay close to family and the communities that they've lived in most of their lives. maybe they can't maintain their big home anymore, but they still want to maintain that sense of independence. For millennials, it's going to come down to overhead, being able to pay your bills, student loans, and still have the ability to enjoy life and be efficient. So those are the key motivators in both sides of the coin. Both groups are seeking that sustainable, less carbon footprint, minimalist lifestyle. So when talking with staff, we came up with the plan that you have in front of you, which is based off of, I believe, an R4 lot. Is that right? It's R4 lot or R5?
R4.
R4 lot. That's currently been, I think, in and out of tax sale for 30 years, if not longer than that. That particular lot, I mean.
You probably did more research
Yeah.
than I did, but yes.
So it fascinated me because I said that was one piece of information that we did not have at our disposal or really didn't even think about. It blew my mind when we started to research those types of lots and how many there are that are just absolutely logistically frustrating for somebody to try to develop anything on them. The way that they are, the way you have to enter into them, things of that nature. Now, as you see on there, and I don't have that in front of me, but I can remember it, you have a horseshoe of a drive. Yeah. So you come in and out on a residential street. I believe that one was depicted off of Washington, and it's right off of Route 83. And the idea there is that you could park, yeah, I wrote some notes here. So the competitive advantage to these types of lots is, one, they're cheap, they're undesirable, which allows for the scale of economy for this type of project. That's one of the difficult things about this, is the fact that you can't just go find a lot like this, pay a couple $100,000 for it, and then try to develop enough infrastructure by the time it's paid back. It's just not, it doesn't work. But with this type of lot, it's a win-win because it takes a vacant piece of property that most of the time the taxes, if paid, are paid way late or not paid at all or constantly being sold in and out of tax sale, and puts an added use to it that makes it more productive, if you will. So the way we would structure that particular little community would be, it would be privately owned, managed, the lots would be rented, and there'd be rules and regulations that would be strictly enforced. We have key focus points that I wanted to touch on, and one of them is the drainage. After researching a lot of the discussions and things that I've seen and read about that come in and out of this room, drainage is a serious problem in Villa Park. So one of the ways that we look to combat and help that process is we're going to use permeated gravel or asphalt, and on top of that, every unit will have a 100-gallon rain catchment barrel, which will be interconnected to a solar-powered pump system for both irrigation to keep aesthetics up within the community itself, but also to help with irrigation to a community garden that we look to place down inside the community as well. As far as moving forward with that, aesthetics were also a big concern last time. We didn't want it to look like a trailer park in the essence of what that looks like today, run down, starts off great, ends horrible for everybody. I think that's one of the major stigmatisms and fears of this, and we get it. We don't want to put our name or attach ourselves to something that's going to end up in that kind of disarray or have that kind of reputation. So to combat that, all the units will be required to meet strict exterior guidelines. We have this single-way horseshoe drive, which will allow for parking along the right side of the road, and an iron decorative fence that will help kind of visualize and encompass the community as a unit and a nice place to live. We touched on the demographics. We touched on how it would be structured. Any questions?
You know, I think when I look at tiny homes, it's not necessarily, you know, you're going to put them in undesirable lots, you know, lots that nobody wants. I think we have to think bigger than that. We have to say, where could this community be if we were going to consider it? Last time you guys were here, you talked about it'd be nice to be by the train station for your convenience. That would be the last place I would put a tiny home, because I would be looking for as much density around a train station than I would, a couple small houses. So that right there would say, maybe we're at a miss, because, would you want to continue on in this community? Because the closer you get to the train station, you want to maximize uses. Yeah, you'll have, maybe a smaller condo, but make no mistake, a tiny home doesn't give you the density you need
I get it.
in a downtown area.
So what we decided to do, and we didn't bring it with, but we've been in contact with Pace, reinstate a bus station on 83, and we'd have a walkway from the community 20 feet to 83, to where you could take the Pace station to the train station. This then allows for the logistics to where you could still be that person that doesn't have a car and still live that low carbon footprint, but you'd logistically be able to get where you need to go, and location becomes less of an issue.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think if we're going to look at tiny homes, I don't think we should look at like one lot. I think we need to look at like an area and decide.
Yeah, because we can't, we're not, if the village were to write in the zoning ordinance, it can't be just based on one lot. It's got to be based on us having a designated a zoning district where we thought this use was compatible, talking about minimum lot sizes, everything else. And, you've got to think about it, we have to think about it comprehensively, because you're talking about one thing, it would have to be a comprehensive look at that use, that density, and then how would it apply to the village and what zoning districts. And this lot is sort of behind other residential lots between Route 83 and the residential street that runs parallel. Is that right? Is that where this lot is?
No, this is Washington and 83, I believe.
Okay.
So your left hand is 83.
Okay.
And your right hand is people's backyards. So there's a couple
So yeah,
townhomes there, right?
what you said was accurate. There's
Sorry.
yeah, no, there's houses between there and the next street over.
Right.
It's the backside.
Which is like Riverside.
Yeah.
You can pull that up, Jay?
Yeah, that'd be Riverside.
Yeah,
And so that's on the other, behind the houses behind that is that an R1, Patrick? Is that an R1 district? Yeah. So then this is more dense than an R4, because it's 8 homes on the parcel that's an R4 up against an R1. So the bigger picture for Villa Park, as I think Commissioner Gatta was getting at, is that we don't really have anything in our zoning ordinance that is even close to this, or even as a planned development, it wouldn't. It's not even close.
Interested in going towards the planned development? If we address the issues that were most concerning?
Well, if you're asking me personally,
Yeah.
I'd never be in favor of it, for a few reasons. To me, it's still, again, this is me personally, I'm not going to speak for other commission members. It's too close to like a trailer park and trailer homes. I've been on this commission a long time, and we've been working for a long time to make sure property values in Villa Park are maintained, to develop our downtown, to all these various things. I moved here because it was affordable. The lot sizes and the homes are affordable. And think about where we are. We are the unique suburb to me. Where we are, we're around Oak Brook Terrace, Lombard, Elmhurst. They're not affordable. So I think we're already the affordable answer in terms of where we are. And I just don't see this kind of density working out. And I also, I'm very attuned to what our staff deals with on a regular basis in terms of property management, property maintenance, and we have a constant problem with single families turning into R4s or worse. 10, 12 people that are unrelated, single family driveways turning into a park. We already have these pressures and these problems. This, to me, doesn't relieve, it goes the other direction. Again, this is me personally. That's the way I feel about it.
Well-
it exacerbates an underlying problem we already have. It doesn't solve anything.
Well, to your point of the mobile home park, you really, if we were gonna set up something, if we said, all right, we're gonna make this happen, the first place we would go is look and see, okay, how are mobile homes, how are they governed? And we have to follow those guidelines because that's pretty close, minus, a foundation, you know?
Right.
So the other, the problem I see, and there are some tiny home communities that I was able to satellite on, it seems like there's, people aren't living within those four walls. There's always stuff outside of their house, There's not a lot of, they have cars, they have bicycles, they have, and those are not in those tiny homes, so to where if we were going to put one of these in the community, I couldn't rely on you to make sure that people, don't have their stuff laying around. So it'd have to be somewhere or, a big enough development where
I have a
you
question.
could.
So you guys approved a microbrewery recently, right? Is that
No.
correct? There's a build up for a microbrewery in Villa Park, right? There's one in Villa Park. Isn't there?
Yeah.
So
There
if
is.
they sell and somebody else moves in, is there an ordinance to stop it from being a dive bar?
Yeah, there's a big difference between a bar and a brewery.
No. I'm just giving an observation from a corporate management perspective. I put my heart and soul into this brand, into this company that I've developed over the last 2.5 years, where we don't have a house within 500 miles of us. We've shipped over 60 plus homes all over the country, and this would be spearheaded directly from our organization.
The
Yeah.
point,
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
You
Get
would
the
take
point.
pride in it, but what
Yeah.
if you sold your project?
Same
What
thing
if-
that would happen in a microbrewery. Potential is potential.
There's a lot more controls if the microbrewery sells to another, wants to have a bar. They're not only going to have have approval for going into that space, they're going to have to get a liquor license, which is a separate process, an approval process.
Yeah, to clarify that point too, the microbrewery, that was not an issue that came before this commission at all. But you make a somewhat valid point in that whether it's apartments or single family homes, you have good owners and bad owners.
Yeah.
That's right.
And staff has to have inspectors keep up on that, and they barely do that now. So I see the point that these guys make in that regard. I've got mixed feelings on this personally. To me, a number of these, 8 might be too many on a lot that's maybe not useful for something else, where it's a thoughtful, like, to me, this plan that's here is not particularly creative. And I know it was just something fast to kind of show us.
Just so you know.
Right, no, I know. And I do have mixed feelings because on a foundation, well built, plumbed, sewer, all of that, it does become a different animal than something on wheels that you throw on a pad and somebody's off to California the next day. I've talked to a number of people in the community about this, and I've heard both sides of the argument. I've also heard the argument that we're a village that has a lot of aging 800 square foot single-family homes, ranches, single-story, that need some work, but not $80,000 to $100,000 worth of work. Why don't people that want to buy a single-family home put that money into a property like that? I mean, what's your, you have a counter to that, or?
What is the average cost of those homes?
In Villa Park?
Well, that's that's true, more than $80,000, but
All in.
But,
Yeah.
but you're saying, so like somebody in one of these houses would spend 80 grand for that house?
Our average cost on a home like that, now granted they're modular, and to touch on the RV aspect, the only reason that this industry in the tiny home market went RV, it was the path of least resistance for retail financing. So if we classified them as RV trailers, we could get retail financing for our buyers. We now have mortgages and other sorts of structures to where they don't have to be RVs. It's just a matter of who's inspecting us. So whether we build to a HUD standard of a mobile home with our high efficiency wall systems, I mean, our homes are rated to a category 5 hurricane and the seismic rating of 9 on a Richter scale for our wall system that we build these homes out of. This is entirely not a mobile home whatsoever. We have 3 homes in Jacksonville, Florida.
I don't think
Everyone
that's
else
the
is
issue,
out.
though. I don't think construction
Yeah, I don't
or
either,
the
and
quality
Yeah, I
of the
didn't
home
think
is
so.
the issue.
That's why I didn't even bring it up.
Well, no,
Yeah.
and I appreciate that you've put your time and effort and energy in this. You're making a good product. That's all great, but you have to understand from our perspective is it's all we can say is codes and follow these codes and these standards. We can't really get into it. So for me this would have to be, we'd have to say it's so many acres. There's so many feet of buffer zone around it, and a limitation of units per whatever acre, whatever. To me, it'd have to be a whole. It can't be onesie, twosie lots.
Yeah.
I'd never, I just don't think we should be
It would have
recommending
to be
it the
kind of
board.
like a PUD is what you're
Yeah,
saying.
yeah, and then
Absolutely.
and that's what I mentioned
Like a trailer
when,
park.
when they were in here the first time, is that this is this not necessarily this, but conceptually something like this is what the PD ordinances are created for. To take something that's not within necessarily the strict regulations of the zoning ordinance, that's different, creative, and hopefully adds value. That's the end goal, to add value, to add to the community. Like this development here is like, I know again it was fast, but and I know the lots you're talking about. I drove by there a week or two ago, and they're brush covered lots that you couldn't even walk through, full of garbage and trash and fly dump and behind people's houses already. So I'm not saying that that's the lot for this. That would take a lot of discussion, but the lots that this is proposed for, I wouldn't want it as my backyard, personally.
Well, it's
It is a
different
blind
than, it's different. It wouldn't fit in.
And when I say I wouldn't want it, I meant what's currently there is less attractive than this.
Yeah.
yeah, and
Yeah, but
this-
if you
But I know,
live
there's,
there,
I
you
know
had
there's more issues. This is
density behind you. Yeah.
This is however many cars, because
Yes.
yes, everybody might not have a car, but if you put 8 units there, some of them will have cars.
Oh yeah.
And
Half of
figured-
them,
that's
2/3
figured on
of
2 cars per unit.
Right.
Park along the whole side there and come out. So
That's gonna be.
So how many acres? My plan is to come back here with a PUD and propose this again. And I want to know how many acres would be something that would be.
I have no idea, because it would have to be, and again, for me to say that the Villa Park's going to entertain, or we're going to recommend to the board and the other citizens of Villa Park that we take some of our land and make it into a tiny home park. Why?
To be first. You're already 26 on Money Magazine.
That's not the why. I just I don't know why. Because like I said, for me, we're already the affordable community. Increasing density and being a rental community like this, where they're in and out, it's really, and I don't want to insult you, but to
No,
me,
you're not
I
gonna
keep
insult me.
I keep going back to it's a trailer park, and why is Villa Park,
Why
and
did
why
the
would the
trailer
Planning and
park
Zoning
come about?
Commission recommend a trailer park?
Why did somebody come about with a trailer park? For affordable housing, right?
Yeah, and
So-
outside of highly urban developed areas like Villa Park, that's the other part, is that we have not that much land.
Yeah, I mean, that's the problem.
We just
You'd
don't have
have
that
to
much land.
assemble
Yeah.
a lot of land.
Yeah, and then the
do
affordability is going to
this.
be out the window, right?
Yeah.
To buffer you, and it
Not if
wouldn't-
there was those 4 lots along there.
I don't think this use. So this is a high density use like a trailer park, and it's going to have a lot of parking. You're not looking at garages. Things are going to get stored outside. To some of these other people's points. So then we need to mitigate that use as it abuts another adjoining use that right now is an R1. So an R1 is our top residential district. It's single family homes, minimum lot sizes, right? You got to have your garage in a certain spot. You can't park your RV. And look at our R1 ordinance and all the requirements that those homeowners have to live with. But then they're going to look across their fence and they're going to look into a community this dense. It's not a good relationship between the two uses. So what's it better up against? Another multifamily district, perhaps, right? Where I already have density. But I don't know where that would be, again, to be contiguous enough for us to consider multiple, of these. And right now, we have no basis for which to measure what's too dense, what's not dense enough, how much amenity that you have. There'd have to be all kinds of information, because our zoning districts are set up, and we look at other communities on bulk regulations, setbacks, and we consider all that stuff very carefully. This is all new, and it would have to be considered very carefully, even as a PD, just because there's very little measuring sticks, and the ones that the staff did get and put into our packet, they're all over the place. And again, it depends on the community and what's by it. What are the adjoining uses? So,
See, I'm looking at that, and even though you have a permeable drive, I mean, that's a lot of land coverage. You're really covering up a lot of land.
yeah. So again, you'd have to really start to take a look at, and then think about the why. Why do we recommend, or in the village board accept, higher density, less green space, more park? You see what I'm saying? What's the?
I completely agree with the notion that it's new and the fear that comes along with that. I mean, you have a reputation to uphold of upholding the best interest of your community. I mean, there's no doubt. At the same regard, there's a lot of people that would love to live here if something like this was available to them. We get 5 to 6 people a day at our facility, and although discrimination and all that is not a topic of discussion, I can tell you they're not the people you're thinking about. These are.
Don't get me wrong.
I mean,
I live.
yes, please do.
I live at the end of a street, and there are 60 units right in my backyard, apartment units. I've been living there for 25 years. So we have density in this community. We have affordable housing in this community that is right alongside R2, R3, R4, and it's not what I'm talking about. Trust me, I'm not talking about discrimination or anything
Right.
like that. It really comes down to zoning uses, compatible uses, density, and those considerations. And it's a big consideration that we're pretty much landlocked right now. There's not a lot of open space for which to develop new uses and to buffer them, amongst other uses. Again, that's my personal opinion.
And when you mentioned the why, like, why would we do that? I guess to create affordable housing, maybe, people who don't need large spaces. But if I were to look at that same parcel, instead of having 8 homes,
Right.
let's say you were to, you know, put in 20 condos. You know, I mean,
Where would you park?
well, you'd park underneath the building. You know,
20
it just would
units
be
underneath
stacked. What I'm saying is,
Lots
if
of
I, you know, and now all of a sudden, now you've got some really affordable, very green space. So it's, you know,
Very affordable green space. Can you clarify that on that?
No, he's just saying,
150 lot?
let's separate it from that specific lot.
yeah.
We already have the ability within our code to build higher density condo. You know, our transit oriented development overlay district allows for a tremendous amount of density that would be affordable housing. It's not
So-
necessarily single family homes on a little tiny lot,
Right.
but it is affordable. And you know, our apartment mix already in Villa Park, I think, is, you know, is affordable as compared to other surrounding suburban areas around us. And we have quite a bit of it. So, anyway, do you want to say something?
I do. I really do. I think I'd like to try to address some of your concerns. My name's Amanda Cooper. I'm one half of the couple that first approached Patrick about this about 3 months ago. I am currently living in Villa Park. I am a resident. I live in Ovaltine, so I'm renting right now, but I would like to own a home for a lot of the same reasons anybody wants to own a home. I want to design it myself. I want it to be just what I need. I want to have a yard, you know. I want to have those things everybody else wants. I just want it to be smaller. I'm living in 670 square feet right now, and it is so much more than we need. I want a home that's somewhere between 300 and 400 square feet. I don't want to have very much stuff. I don't want to have very much to maintain. I just want to have a small home. And I'm willing to be kind of flexible on this. If it ends up being a development that I lease the land from, I'm okay with that. But if I can own a small piece of property, that would work as well. So I at least wanted to offer another suggestion to think about. I believe minimum lot size right now is something like 50 by 100. I would want probably about half of that. You know, I'm okay with having to have parking. Right now we're required to have a 2-car garage, which again, we don't have a car. So having a 1-car garage I could deal with, so we have somewhere to put the lawnmower and our bikes and stuff like that. But a 2-car garage is just so much more than we need. Just like an 800 square foot house is so much more than we need. So if you're thinking about just like what are the options, I think this is one great option that I'd be happy if we could find a way to make it work. But maybe another option would be to have a part of town where you have smaller lot sizes. So can we take an existing lot and split it into 2 so that you have 2 tiny homes? And I don't think the population density would be that much because you wouldn't have a family of 4 or 5 living in a tiny home. You would have a family of 1 or 2 or maybe 3 if you have a small child or something like that. But I don't think most tiny homes have large families. So it's just another option that I wanted to consider. So that way you would have people owning their home, not renting. The population density wouldn't be quite as high. The level of housing would be very similar to your current level of housing. You know, people would be responsible for maintaining the outside of their home, just like all of other homeowners are in town right now. So you don't have to worry about, you know, are the landlords keeping the property up, and you know, are like you have stuff. One of the concerns earlier was like there's bikes and things all around. So this is just another option that I wanted to throw out there. This is something that's important to me, and I brought it up, so I wanted to address some of your concerns.
Yeah. You know, I think if you were to look around Villa Park, we've got lots that are smaller than 50 by well, my lot's 25 by 125. It depends on what zoning district you're in. The minimum lot size varies by zoning district. So, you know, consider that as well.
And we also have lots that were platted before the code that are below.
That's correct, that are below. And there's houses that are, you know, my house is 800 square feet on the first floor. So there's houses that are small houses, and there's smaller lots than, you know, around the village. To say that we would set up a district with half,
This is just one suggestion.
Yeah.
Lot size is one issue, but of course you have
Yeah.
all these other issues that you have to
Yeah.
consider in tiny houses, because you have the building codes, like would you allow ladders to get up to a sleeping loft, things like that. There'd be quite a few changes to
Yeah.
make. I'm just saying lot size is one example of something that might need to change, and then you wouldn't be worrying about the density, you wouldn't be worrying about renters and things like that.
Right. Right. Okay. You guys, what are you guys' thoughts?
Hear from anybody else who wants to talk either side.
Yeah. Does anyone else? Yeah. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Daryl Gransley. I've been a resident of Villa Park for 29 years. Mr. Florizio, I do like your product. There's nothing wrong with it. I pass my commute to work every day to Waukegan. I do pass mobile home parks. And I see the disarray of that and what that costs. So your product is a superior product over that. I must admit that. My wife's family owns a park model in McAllen, Texas. It's in a private, gated, high-secured area. It was an old airport hangar. It's got airport hangars around it, recreation, outdoor swimming pools. It's very private. It's intended for recreation use, for retirement, for seasonals, for the snowbirds, and it's got a lot of activities. It's well managed, and you can't sell everything that you sell in as far as the park model. Have to go through a committee to be sold. People have to be voted to come in to access that high security area. Personally, I don't see this working for Villa Park. I've tried researching in the state of Illinois alone on how many municipalities, villages have accommodated or changed their ordinances and building codes to accommodate tiny homes. I didn't find one in the entire state of Illinois. That said, I do like your product. I don't think it's good for Villa Park. And to Mrs. Cooper, you mentioned Ovaltine. Being a resident of 29 years, I sat through all these commission hearings, and the board took over 10 years to develop that property. I'd rather see the use of Villa Park and handle all these zoning issues that we have currently, address that, get a downtown area that we can, and develop the land in a proper use. That I think that's what the citizens of Villa Park really want. That's speaking personally for me. So I don't think it'll even pass to go through this commission. If it does, for some reason, I don't see it going through in this town at all for the people of Villa Park. That's my personal opinion. We have to focus on stuff here. I want to see Villa Park grow, and there's a reason, like Mr. Whitehurst had mentioned, where our locality is right now to Elmhurst and the expressways and the airport. That's our niche right now. We need to take an area and develop that area. Whether it's in our immediate downtown, we're kind of broken up right now. We need to come together as a community and develop as a community. That's all I have to say on the matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else that wants to join in the discussion? Yeah, sure.
My name is Chris Hartman. I'm a current resident of Villa Park. I live at 546 South Washington Avenue. Me and my wife bought 1924 Cape Cod about 4 years ago, and I'm also the vice president of sales at Titan Tiny Homes, so this kind of hits home for me. I know you brought up before about this community being affordable. I mean, that's one of the reasons why we moved here about 4 years ago. My wife's educated, master's degree. She works downtown in the city. She commutes. You know, I get to go to South Belgium, so it's not too bad. But we don't, you know, we're both successful, and within the 4 years, our house value's gone up almost $100,000. Great for us. If I was to consider moving here, again, it'd be very, very hard. Yeah, I'd be able to buy a house. You know, you're looking at a house that's $220,000. I'm fairly handy, so I can get in there and do some work. But you know, most of the homes around here, they're smaller. They need a lot of work. So, with that being said, you know, the affordability is definitely not going to last long. I mean, you said we're between Glen Ellen, Elmhurst, all these great, you know, suburban cities that have a lot to offer. So, point of entry has definitely gone up. So, I feel like this is something that's, you know, a great thing. It's definitely a nationwide movement. Not only that, it's worldwide. I mean, we just recently sold a house that's going to Switzerland. She paid $95,000 for it. That's cool. So this isn't a fad. You know, something that's going to happen. It's just whether or not people in this community are open-minded to proceed with the conversation on it. And we're obviously open to working with the city to compromise it and make this happen if we so wish. So I just wanted to get up here and introduce myself and just kind of get some quick thoughts there. So, and thank you guys for making the time for us and taking the opportunity to let us talk.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else want to join in the conversation? Yeah, great.
I'm Matt Adamczyk, and I live in Villa Park as well. I like the idea of tiny homes. I think everybody thinks that, I mean, I think that they're cute, and you know, homey and quiet, but I've never actually, until today, I didn't actually think of them being in a planned community, something where there'd be multiple units. I always thought of them as on a ridge somewhere overlooking a sunset, or, you know, something almost like a vacation home. I don't think that, unless there's one or two limited to like a regular R1 lot or something like that, I can't see them fitting in at Villa Park. I look at some of the, there's it runs along the northwestern tracks. It's almost in Glen Ellen before you get to some golf. I want to say it. Crescent. Yes. There's these wacky brown houses.
Part of the golf course.
Is it part of the golf?
Pretty sure, yes.
Just to the east of them. Everyone knows what I'm talking about. They're interesting to look at, but you know, I want to see one on a ridge overlooking a sunset. I don't want to see 8 of them, you know, just crammed together. That's all I have to say on the subject for now. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Next question.
How about you guys?
You say you ship them all over the country. What type of areas are you shipping them to, though? They're not
So
dense
we're
residential areas, right? I mean, it's...
Yeah, so heavily in Florida, heavily in Texas, and heavily in California. And then there's about 10 or 15 of our homes scattered through the north east coast. So New Jersey to Massachusetts, a few there, Connecticut, upstate New York.
Because you say we'll be the first, so there's been nothing like this. These are, and my only experience is watching the show on TV, so I'm very ignorant to that. But
what we have is we have people that mostly city of Chicago.
you said that last time you were here and said that's kind of a new thing, though,
Yeah,
right?
artists. It's more of a mindset than it is a frugality thing for a lot of people. They just need less space. But what I will say is, I flew in from Florida. I got in at 2 this morning, so not all here, but I am here. But the reason I say that is we were in Florida this weekend for the second annual Tiny House Festival in Jacksonville. And the attendance was 65,000 people this year and last year. In fact, it averages 50,000 no matter what show we go anywhere in the country. And next year, in August, there's going to be a DuPage Tiny House show here. And even at our little open houses on a Saturday afternoon, there's 200 people that show up. So, I think you're right. I think everyone's right. I think maybe it isn't the right fit. Or maybe it is, and we just haven't figured it out yet. I came here because I saw an opportunity for somebody that had an open conversation. At the same regard, it's not often that you get to set a precedent for everyone else to follow and be a leader. And what I've heard all night is forward thinking. We've come so far from here. We're trying to get here. Why don't we go there together? What's the risk? Time? I mean, that's the one commodity that we all share that's exactly the same as time. And I'm willing to put up as much of mine, as long as it's open ears, to at least have a conversation continued whether it's over a month or a year or 10 years, it doesn't really matter to me, but first means something. And you're trying to set a precedent here. And I think that it'd be foolish to disregard. And maybe there's an opportunity to talk a little further about this. And maybe both ideas were wrong, but that doesn't mean that somewhere between the lines there's the right answer. You know, this area of the country sustained a lot of things, and we've set a lot of precedents, whether it's coming back from the Chicago fire or some of the early bungalows of the city of Chicago. We've done things here. We can do something here that with the best interest of this community, I know would be the best interest for the entire state, let alone the country. Because you've seen the hodgepodge things that have come about. There was no time put into any of that stuff. I sit on a board for California. It's a discussion for PUD. Does anyone know what an ADU is? It's accessory dwelling units.
Yep.
So they put this code together really fast, and they embodied the R1 code, and they kind of slept it all together. Well, now they've quadrupled the amount of applications from the year before. They have a huge problem because they can't get through their applications fast enough because it wasn't thought through well enough. So I respect your foresight in that. But what I am asking for is the opportunity to set a standard, set a precedent with the best interest of Villa Park. I think that can be accomplished, and it'd be something that could affect the entire country. That's just my opinion.
I would agree with you if we had land and space. I think that's our problem. We don't have land and space. I think some of these other suburbs that have a bigger footprint overall, their community's a bigger footprint, and they have areas that are tough for them to develop as housing or industrial or retail. They may have some more flexibility in working in a use and a density like this. I just don't see where we have the space to do it. So that would be my advice to you, would be to kind of look at those communities with bigger footprints that maybe are similar demographically to what you're looking for in the greater Chicagoland area, and see what you can work out there, because then there's room to have density and buffer, right? So that there's not this perceived imposition on other people that have single family lots. The gentleman that brought up Ovaltine, I was on the commission when we did Ovaltine, and that was what the main concern was, is density. And we kept telling everyone in the community, it's just not going to be what you think it is. It's even though it's a lot of units, it was 14 acres worth of space. And I think we did it was 144, I can't remember what the unit numbers were, but it ended up working out great. And I think people today that never knew that we had to fight to get that development would even understand what some of the discussions were. But that's with 14 acres of space. So we also know our community pretty well. So I think the way you're headed and what you're thinking of in terms of this managed kind of a development, I think that's the right thinking. But find a community that has a bigger footprint and maybe has some areas of land that is really tough for them to develop. The little pieces of land that we're talking about on Round 83, I just don't think that those are a big enough space to develop something. So that's what I would say. So I don't know, what do you guys all think after discussion here and hearing neighbors? And
I think you're right. I think it's less desirable, like if you're able to put something on the side of a mountain, that's gorgeous. That's, kind of what you were mentioning. But also, if you want to be in a community, maybe you look for, something that has a vacuum effect, like an old factory that's no longer there.
Yeah.
Now it's better than looking at a building that's vacant with weeds growing through a parking lot. And there's a lot of areas like that in this area. You don't have to go far to see that, but like you mentioned, I mean, I don't want to say we're a bedroom town, but we kind of are, There's not, it's more residents than it is businesses. We don't have factories like Ovaltine that people go to every day, So.
Mike,
I'll just I've lived here since 1965. Never left. Have a family, have kids. I spent about 2 years working on the comprehensive plan of the village. We actually did a housing study in the village. Density is everything that we talked about. Personally, we got a 4 square mile town. That's about what we are. I have a family, I have kids, and the last thing that I want to see is land stripped down for tiny homes. I would rather see a ballpark go in, basketball courts, a pool that we need to figure out what we're going to do with, something for the kids in the town to do. That's to me, that's what's important. Everything that we did with the comprehensive plan was density, not taking more space. We're landlocked here, and that's the biggest issue that I see for my family, my kids, and the other people that I've spoke to, is we have more needs in the town because we're too small. We don't have enough land to go around. Is there a fit for what you're designing? Or yes, there is. Is it this type of structure, or the same thing that they wanted to build up by the train station was condensed 1-bedroom apartments, five stories tall. I mean, that's density. That's all in one structure.
All right, you guys, anything else?
Yeah, and when we keep talking about comparing this to a mobile home park, it's important to know that a mobile home park, 2 mobile homes would fit on a lot this size, not 8. I mean, this is really, really dense. And I share that concern 100%. I also am concerned that one of the things we're going to have to insist on, that it be a permanent structure. That makes it a long-term problem. It's no longer something you can just change your mind on and say, oh, boy, this didn't work, let's pull them out of here. We have these here for a very long time. They're houses. And I got to tell you, I really admire you guys a lot for the way you're living your lives and all that stuff. I think that's really cool. But I just agree, it's not here.
So my thoughts on it are basically this. First of all, I'd say take the mobile home thing and throw it out, because I could show you a mobile home community with thousands of units where I'd be hard pressed to afford one of them. Well maintained, well landscaped,
Right.
land lays to hold 9 yards. I don't see a place in our community, because of the nature of the way it's built out currently, where subdividing lots into smaller lots would work. My wife, she's not from this area. We drive down the street. Those houses are so close together. They're not that close together. She didn't grow up in Chicago, obviously, where they're really close together. But to the average suburban homeowner, our homes are already fairly close together. It's not unusual for a house to be 10 or 15 feet apart because of our setbacks and so on, and relatively narrow lots. Most of our big lots are, not our big lots, but the vast majority of our lots are 50 feet wide. I think, and Patrick could correct me if I'm wrong on this, I don't think there's anything in the PD process that would stop a development like this, building code aside. Building code's the complex issue, which is not something that we're in charge of anyway.
Yep, that's village board.
Yes. I would not throw out a well-thought-out, well-planned plan development of a decent size in the right area, but I'm not a developer. It's not my job to find that location and design that. Even though that is kind of my job on the side.
On the side.
It's not my job here. So what I'd say is, I'm not completely against the idea. I think the idea of putting 8 or 10 of these on a single family lot behind a single family house, even if it is zoned R4, honestly, the only reason that property is probably zoned R4 is because it was never changed on the zoning ordinance. That'd be my guess. Because I know the property you're talking about, and was probably land that the homeowners there at some point when the 83 was widened had the opportunity to buy, and most of them didn't. So I'm not completely against the idea. With the right permanent sort of structures and the right configuration, movable on wheels, never. I think that's a bad, personally, I think that's a bad model, except there are communities for it. Like, you know, the ski areas of Colorado and the more, you know, tourist area, not tourist, but California and Oregon, where people do, they go, they spend several months, and then they go to the next warm place, they go back and forth between Colorado and California during the ski seasons or whatever. But on wheels, I could never get behind that. The right type of development in a PD context where, as a village, we have a lot of control over what happens, how it happens, design elements, etc. I would entertain that. That's where I'm at on it.
Okay. Is that about your guys' thoughts on this issue? Okay. And Mr. Grill, that you want to add? I'm just thinking it's 9 o'clock and
only to the standpoint of what I have heard tonight is generally no. However, if the right project came along that was able to utilize the PUD process in the manner in which it was developed, that is, developer gets something out of it, the village gets something out of it, and it's a win-win for both sides and not strictly just a win for the developer, just to be able to put as many units into the smallest area possible. It sounds like that might be something that this commission might entertain, but just as a general tiny home and developing a specific zoning district around, that's not something that you're interested in doing.
Right. The right project.
I
If
think
the
that's-
right project came through, I think it would be.
as a PD, not as developing a zoning district. That's what he's saying.
Right.
I think it's too unique, too case specific to look at it at that level at this point in time, where you could say this could be applied to this entire zoning district. I don't think that makes sense.
Okay. Especially given what we were talking about in terms of being landlocked and
Right.
comprehensive plan and everything. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, so that was our discussion. Upcoming public hearings. Thank you all, though, for coming out and listening, and those of you that participated, it was great. Thank you.
Thank you. Upcoming public hearings. On December 14th, there will be a public hearing on the zoning ordinance. However, it is being held in front of and by the steering committee, not specifically the Planning and Zoning Commission. I had a discussion with the village attorney today. When there are amendments to the existing zoning code, it comes before the Planning and Zoning Commission. Where there is a complete rewrite of a zoning ordinance, that's typically done by a specially appointed plan commission, or in our case, it was the steering committee that developed the draft plan. So they will be the ones actually hosting the public hearing on December 14th. And as there are no other public hearings or matters before the Planning and Zoning Commission, they will be the ones on December 14th. But I would highly encourage all Planning and Zoning Commission members to be at that public hearing.
Okay, so the steering committee will conduct the public hearing.
Correct.
Here?
Here, yes. 7:30 on December 14th.
not gonna be around.
So then the steering committee will vote.
And they will
make
be
a-
the ones that
make a recommendation.
to the village board,
Okay.
correct?
So just, maybe I should put you on the spot.
No,
What
go
makes-
ahead.
What makes it different than like the comprehensive plan? Just because it's an ordinance?
State statute.
Okay.
State statute has provision in there that when there are complete rewrites of a zoning ordinance, which this is, that there is a separate, what they call term, plan commission, appointed by the village board to conduct that rewrite. And it's not the regularly established plan commission of the village.
Okay.
I went several rounds with the village attorney today because we were trying to draft the public notice that has to go in the newspaper. And he goes, no, it's not. He says, an amendment to the zoning ordinance goes to the Planning and Zoning Commission. A complete rewrite is an entirely separate issue by state statute.
I'm on both commissions, so it's fine by me, but I just hadn't heard that before.
Okay. Any board actions or related matters?
Nope.
Okay. Any commissioner comments?
Happy Thanksgiving.
All right. All those in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Aye. We're adjourned. Thank you.